It's time for PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin. Dr. Bob guides you through the latest veterinary techniques and procedures to keep your pets in the best of health. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. With your ears up and tails wagging, here is Dr. Bob.
Good morning, PetSylvania listeners. It's Dr. Bob. I'm really happy to be here today, and we're going to, again, just start off by thanking Elanco for being my sponsor. We really appreciate their support in this, and we'll be talking a little later about one of their products as we are moving into the heart of flea season in Northwest Ohio. I'm from SylvaniaVET, which is at 4801 Holland, Sylvania, the corner of Haroon, down the road from Las Vegas Flower Hospital, with all of their fancy lights and all the controversy that's caused. We're there 24/7 and answering our phones. So if you have a pet question because you have a problem, give us a call. And, midnight, we're there. Our technicians will answer the phone, and they'll get in touch with the doctor if it's truly an emergency. So we're there for you all the time. You can get a hold of us at 419-885-4421. This week we had an opportunity to implement a program that we've had in place for a long time. We have a feral cat, a spay-neuter release program that we started maybe 10 years ago to try to help in a small way with neighborhood feral cat problems. And feral cats pose a serious health issue in the neighborhood, a health issue for your cat if it goes outside because they can be attacked and bitten and develop infections or transmitted highly infectious diseases like feline immunodeficiency virus, feline leukemia virus. But then there's also health issues with people because they're voiding in gardens, they're potentially voiding in children's sandboxes, and they can pass internal parasites, roundworms and hookworms, into those spaces. And if the kids are playing in the box or you're gardening, you could conceivably counter cat fecal mass and get sick from that. It's kind of remote, I think, that you would do that if you're wearing gloves and if you're washing your hands before you eat. But I think it is something that we should pay attention to. If we just take and eliminate the cats, move them out into the country, well, that's not a very responsible thing to do because now we've created a problem for somebody else. But mostly then what'll happen is another cat will just move in. It's an ongoing process. So the key, there's a whole group of people nationwide that feel like the answer to this situation is spay, neuter, and release. So what you do is you bring them in, you have them spayed, and then you turn them back into your territory. They're not going to reproduce anymore. The males are going to be less aggressive, and as a result, then the population stays stable, and that we don't continually have new cats coming in with the ability to produce more kittens. Our program involves we test for leukemia and immunodeficiency virus. If that feral cat were to be positive for either of those, then we euthanize that cat, because we want to eliminate that health danger. And then we give an injection for worms and ear mites. We give a rabies vaccine, and then we do this procedure to either neuter or to spay. And then with pain management on board, you take Kitty home and release the cat. We'll actually help you by renting you live trap if you need it. So you can give us a call at 419-885-4421 if you'd like to learn more about our spay neuter release program, which kind of leads us into another discussion about spaying and neutering, and that is early age spaying and neutering. And it's relatively controversial in the profession from the standpoint of it's become the politically correct thing to do for the humane shelters to not release an animal to a new forever home without being spayed and neutered. And it's their hope that they're going to reduce the animal population. And in some communities that seems to have helped, but the overall impact, fortunately, has not been as great. I think there are some concerns with the way the procedure can be done. The young animals, some of these animals are being spayed at kittens at less than 2 pounds, which makes them less than 8 weeks old, and some puppies not much bigger than that, and certainly many puppies at 8 weeks. The problem is that their organ systems are not fully developed at that age, and their lungs are not as mature as they will be when they're a bit older. Their kidneys are not. Then the anesthesia procedure is not properly supported with IV fluids and the necessary support to cause them to have good diuresis during the procedure, keeping keeping their blood pressure up. We don't know what the consequences of that are. There's a whole group of veterinarians scattered throughout the country that are looking into this a little bit, but if you start publishing this, there's a whole lot of flashback on that from the advocates of the early age spay and neuter. So we don't know if there are going to be any long-term consequences beyond the fact that maybe kidney damage can be done, and at 10 or 11 years old, a cat or a dog may suddenly start showing signs of kidney disease. But how do we relate it back to when they were early age spay and neuter? Another concern may be that there's not as good and proper bone, joint, and skeletal development, and it's leading to dogs, particularly with increased incidences of anterior cruciate ligament injuries and other bone and joint diseases. So very controversial. In a one-on-one situation, if you've purchased a cat or a dog and you've not gotten it through a humane organization that is doing spays and neuters, I would wait until that puppy or kitten is maybe about 6 months old. It's still before sexual maturity, but they're older and much better able to handle the risks of anesthesia, because we do want to make anesthesia as safe as we possibly can. You know, I started this off by talking about things that I forgot, and I had them listed on my outline for today's talk, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a condition, a disease process that's called zoonosis. And zoonosis is the transmission of diseases from humans to dogs or humans to animals and back the other way as well. And so the obvious one that we all know about and we worry about is rabies. That's a zoonotic disease from mammals to humans, and it's certainly a concern. But the good news in Northwest Ohio is that we have not had a rabid dog or cat in Northwest Ohio since the Public Health Department started keeping records in 1955. So that's a good long time. What we do see up here we see bats and skunks occasionally. They're the primary carriers, and there is a worry in the future that raccoons could have a problem. There's a thing called raccoon rabies that has been spreading up from the southeast and up along the Mississippi River Valley area and kind of merging. And it's already in Ohio. It's over in the Mahoning County area, in the Youngstown area. So that's a concern. But other zoonotic diseases can be something as simple as scabies, which is an itchy skin mange disease of dogs. And if your dog is unfortunate to have scabies, you could conceivably get that. Another thing would be roundworms and hookworms from contaminated animals. That's why we think it's extremely important that you do stool checks on your pets twice yearly, not only for their health, but the health of the animal. Things that aren't really zoonotic are the human cold. Cats and dogs do not get the rhinovirus that people get when we get a cold. And the respiratory diseases that cats get, the rhinotracheitis, the calicivirus in cats, the bordetella canine cough in dogs, those are not contagious to people. So there are diseases that we have to worry about from a zoonotic perspective, a disease that we vaccinate against because it's endemic in the northwestern Ohio area called leptospirosis. We think that's a very important vaccine. It is potentially zoonotic to people. And so not only are we as veterinarians worrying about the health of our pets, but we're also worrying about the public health and when we make our vaccine recommendations. So your dog, if it goes outside, which is pretty most every dog around, should have a leptospirosis vaccine, and we strongly recommend that. And I would recommend that you talk to your veterinarian about that. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back shortly. Oh, we're back, and there's always some little follow-up to what he talked about in the first portion, and that is I think it's really important to emphasize that if you have cats and you feel as though they never go outside, they should still have rabies vaccines. Bats being the number one transmitter of rabies, cats being predators. Given the merging of those two opportunities, there could be some risk. And there was a report in the Blade several months ago, maybe a little more than a year, about a guy that rolled over in his bed and got bitten in the stomach, and it turns out it was a rabid bat that had gotten into his home and decided to take a nap with him. So the gentleman had to go through the the rabies vaccine series. One of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about at the office is proper diet and how to take weight off of animals. And how to take weight off of a dog is much different than how to take weight off of a cat. Dog, you can kind of weight them out. You put the food down and say, Fido, if you don't eat, you'll eat the next time. But in a cat, you can't go into that starvation mode and expect you're going to win it. They're too strong-willed. They don't want to eat, they won't eat, and they can actually create a problem that is very severe and potentially life-threatening by literally starving themselves into a condition called hepatic lipidosis or fatty liver. As they start to starve and they don't take in nutrition because they're just too stubborn to eat or they don't feel well enough and they're not eating, from a respiratory infection to an intestinal problem or anything that might knock a cat's appetite off, eating no food for as little as 3 days can start the process of hepatic lipidosis. Highly critical that cats eat regularly and they eat sufficiently to prevent hepatic lipidosis. When we get into having to treat a cat with lipidosis, we have to see that they get sufficient calories every day, and it needs to be a high-fat diet and low carbohydrate. And so what we end up oftentimes having to do is put a feeding tube in so that we can get enough calories in, because it's pretty hard to stuff enough calories down a cat's mouth to meet their caloric needs. And so the feeding tube, though sounds a little bit radical, is actually very simple, very easy, and something that almost everybody can learn how to manage their cat. And we've been asked the question, well, how long do you leave it in? You leave it in until they start eating again, because they can eat with the tube in, and they will, and they do. I've seen it happen many times. I've had a cat that we could pull the tube in 3 days. You sit there and say, oh boy, did I really need to do that? Yeah, because we didn't know it was going to be 3 days. And I have other cats that was over 8 weeks before we were able to pull the feeding tube, and they were fully self-sufficient, but do really well with that. Another thing that we take care of at SylvaniaVET is birds. And we have 2 doctors that regularly see our exotics and that have advanced education in birds. And so I'm certainly not the guy to talk about that. And maybe in the future we'll bring one of those doctors in as a guest, and we'll really have some questions, and maybe we can tell you they're coming so you can send some questions to us. But there's a couple things that I think I can tell you that will be really beneficial. Regardless of the size of the bird, whether it's a canary or a parakeet or a macaw, birds need to be enriched. They need to be interacted with. They need to be talked to. They need to have exercise. They need to not get into themselves. And where we get into that is if we put a mirror in their cage, they fall in love with themselves, and they don't socialize with us. If we don't give them something to chew on and to occupy themselves, then they get bored. They start feather picking. That's a stress boredom sign. So it's really important that there are a number of really great products. If you were to Google Lara Joseph, Lara Joseph, you would find that she is a bird behavioral expert, and she sells a variety of really high quality bird toys designed for birds of various species and various sizes. Talk to Laura. You're really impressed at what she's able to accomplish with a lot of her behavioral discussions and how she's able to really create a terrific pet, and a pet that's a lot of fun to have in your house by giving them a lot of enrichment. We find that when we enrich the lives of our dogs by walking and playing fetch, certainly we're having fun with that. The same thing is true with cats when we enrich their lives by playing with a feather on a stick or a laser pointer. We're having fun watching them have fun, and so it's good for our psyche. It's good for their mental health, and it's good for their weight control, and the same thing is true with birds. Well, I had mentioned that we are roaring into flea season. We have really started to see puppies and dogs and cats come in that have fleas, and it's going to only get worse. And our goal, of course, is to try to prevent and kill the fleas on the animal, and then prevent the ultimate consequence. And that ultimate consequence, of course, is getting fleas in the house. So one of the best products on the market, and the one that we've been selling a lot, is Trifexis. And Trifexis is and it's only for dogs, is a once a month pill that you give that's both effective against heartworm and fleas, and we think it's probably the state-of-the-art product today. It doesn't get ticks, but tick season is winding down, so until spring, we probably don't have to worry much about ticks again. We can concentrate on our monthly heartworm preventive and our monthly control, and I think that we'll be much better served, and we'll see fewer animals coming in January and February with fleas on them if they've been on Trifexis and had prevented the house from getting contaminated. Again, I want to promote the prices at SylvaniaVET on Trifexis because we are the lowest priced source of Trifexis in the area. Fortunately, you need to have a current client-patient-doctor relationship. That means that we have to have examined your animal. But if you'd like to buy product from us, and obviously if you'd like to become a client of ours, we will offer you a short 10-minute doctor visit so that we could become acquainted and we can acquire the necessary relationships so that we can sell you Trifexis. And then hopefully if we have an emergency with your pet, you'll call on us as well. So call us at 419-885-4421. For 6 pills, our price was $84. And of the practices that we surveyed, we actually found one that the price for the same 6 pills was $120. It's pretty amazing. Our individual pill price is about $17. We found another practice that they charge $21 for each individual pill. So there's a huge difference, and I'm not quite sure why there is. Every week we talk about things with nutrition with clients, and there's so much information. I know I'm beating a dead horse because we've talked about this before, but this week we had an upset client that didn't want to feed IMS food because she said they test on animals, and that's all she knows. She's heard it from the internet, which is obviously makes it fact. And so all the good quality companies, they do test on animals. What they do is they do food trials, and these animals, if you ever saw the facilities that IMS and Purina and the Royal Canin people have their animals, we would be happy to live in those spaces. They're given enrichment every day. They're given physical exams. They're fed extremely well. They're not fed deficient diets so that they can find out if there are clinical signs. This is not a research facility from that perspective. This is a facility to determine, is this diet a good diet and should it be fed? So feeding trials, I think, are really an important part, and you have to have dogs to feed, and you have to have those in a controlled environment. So there's really nothing wrong with doing it as long as the animals are treated humanely and lovingly, and they're given care and attention, and they're not just stuck in a cage. Then I have literally no problem with that. So start thinking more along the lines of, where do I get quality nutrition, and how do I know it's quality nutrition? Because if you buy foods from a company that's just advertising on the TV or on the radio, but they're not investing any of their money in research, are they really providing you with the kind of product that you want to feed your pet? Well, this time just flies by, so I'm going to turn it back over for a break here, and then we'll finish up. We're back to wrap it up. So it's been, time just flies. I really enjoy this, and I certainly hope that the listeners enjoy it. And I'd really appreciate if you'd go ahead and send some questions into request at WSYLradio.com so that I can address some specific questions and not have to come up with all these topics myself. There's plenty to talk about, but I always want to know, well, what's interesting and what have I talked about recently? Well, we got some cool things that are going on here. Tomorrow, I have the distinct pleasure of hosting Dr. Carrie Bean, who's a veterinarian from Indiana, and Carrie is really interested in learning more about reproduction as it relates to purebred dogs and cats. She has a brother-in-law that raises English bulldogs. So Carrie's and her husband are coming up, and I'm going to spend the day talking to her a lot about canine reproduction. I have a very strong interest in this area and do a great deal of it. And literally then on Sunday, she's going to, after our seminar tomorrow. We're going to go and she and Andy to the Mud Hens game. Sunday morning, we have a surgical insemination on a championship English Springer Spaniel on semen that was shipped in frozen in nitrous oxide. So it's kind of cool. It's not something we do every week, and it's this variety is what makes the veterinary profession such a great profession. Saturday, August 18th, members of our staff are going to be involved in the Bow Wow event being held at the Maumee Street Fair from 9 to 5 at the corner of Conant and Broadway. We'll be there along with a number of area rescues and other animal-related businesses for the Maumee Bow Wow event. And then September the 9th, there's going to be an event at Burnham Park from 1 to 4 o'clock called the Pooch Plunge. And there's going to be a $5 charge. You're going to be able to take your dog and have it swim in the Plummer Pool at Burnham Park just before it's emptied for the season. Monies that are raised there are going to be donated to Toledo Unleashed, or an organization that is going to be directly involved in trying to get a dog park started. And then we have a fundraiser for our charitable foundation at SylvaniaVET. Our charitable foundation is called the Memories Live On Animal Foundation. That foundation gives a scholarship to a vet student at Ohio State every year. We have Good Samaritan funds that we help families in need with some support on a case. We have monies that we donate area rescues to help support their projects, and so that all comes out of fundraisers that we do for the Memories Live On Animal Foundation. We have a Corralt opportunity where you can come in and you can buy some Corralt artwork, and then we get a percentage of that back, and that's going to go until September 1st. So if you're looking for something that's really very beautiful, animal related, and you want to get something for your garden, because that's where a lot of people put these Corralt pieces, come in, take a look at what's available, and then you can place your order, and by the long before Christmas it'll be ready. So start thinking about a Christmas gift, maybe, even though I hate to start thinking about Christmas quite this early. Start thinking about a Christmas gift. Maybe you could help us raise a little money, and you could get a beautiful gift for yourself or a family member. So with that said, I'd like to say, there's only one greatest pet, and it lives in your home. Thank you, Elanco.
You have been listening to PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin on WSYLradio.com. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. Tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. as Dr. Bob explains the latest in veterinary care and answers your questions. You can email your pet questions to requests@WSYLradio.com, and Dr. Bob will answer them on a future show.